we've reached the last presenter of the evening. Our last presenter is Tommy Hyde. Join the movement, free your hips. Let's welcome Tommy.
Can everyone see me if I'm here? All right, it feels really good to be down on some ground I can skate on. My hips were getting so tight in that seat. It feels good to be up. All right, I'm ready to go. Our journey begins as all great epics do at Burning Man. I'm right there with the glasses on, and we are on the precipice of a much-anticipated life experience, and thank you, Dawn, for teeing this up, dropping acid for the first time. Now, for those of you who are familiar with Burning Man, you'll know it's a pop-up community of 70,000 people deep in the Nevada desert, complete with monumental sculpture art, cars shooting lasers, and yes, a giant burning effigy. But perhaps the most succinct way to describe it is that it's essentially an acid trip without the acid. So if you take a psychedelic there's something called the law of exponents, and that really comes into play. It was a lot to handle. Lots of colors, lots of shapes, lots of movement. It felt like I couldn't quite hang on. So as I was hanging on the back of a tandem bike with my friend Benji, he said, "Tom, what do you need?" And Burning Man's a place where everything's happening everywhere all at once. And the answer came quick. I said, "Benj, I need disco music." And all this EDM, disco is my favorite music, and I really wanted to reconnect with those roots. So sure enough, we come upon the Black Rock roller disco, which is by now looking about this. I feel like I'm in a 90s era video game. And I grab a pair of skates, and I lace them up, and they're feeling real good. And I'm like, something's happening here. And I kick off, and if you've seen that scene in Ratatouille where the critic takes a bite of food and he's rocketed back to his childhood, that's what happened to me. I grew up a hockey goalie, and so these movements of backwards, forwards, in and out, those are all very second nature because you're focused on catching pucks and not, where you are. And so as I came back into my body, as Don said, I think I might have seen God. This experience of roller skating to funk music, it was like I had been secretly preparing for this moment for my entire life, and I was only just now realizing it. And so I needed to find the person who was responsible for this great gift, and I met David Miles Jr., a.k.a. the godfather of skate, and this hero brings 1,000 square feet of roller disco floor out to Burning Man every year, along with hundreds of skates to give that experience to more people than just myself. And he hails from San Francisco, where he took an old church in the Tenderloin and converted it into the Church of Eight Wheels. I went to this place, and it's so cool because in such a city at odds with itself at times, you could see a really amazing cross-section of the population grooving. And so as I was coming down off of acid in a plane at sunrise, 5,000 feet over Burning Man with a pilot I met on the dance floor, I thought to myself two things. One, you probably don't need to do acid ever again. And two, it'd be pretty cool to start a community roller disco movement in Burlington. Fast forward a few years, and it's the middle of the pandemic. I'm camped out in the Adirondacks, frequenting Stewart's, doing goofy things with my friends. And this idea really started to germinate. And, it would be so nice if I just had a little cash to pull it off. And in comes the economic impact payment. And so it was obvious what I was going to do with that. I was going to set a Google News alert and just look for roller discos that are going out of business, which is such a tragedy, but that was happening left and right. All these in-person businesses were not making it. And sure enough, the Roller Garden, just outside Minneapolis, Minnesota, was closing after 50 years. And I shot him a message, and sure enough, the skates were going up for auction. So I deposited my check, got out my computer, and prepared to enter my first online auction ever. I assumed the skates would be sold in lots of 20 or 30, but no, they were all listed individually. So over the course of 8 hours, I bid on individual skates. It was very exciting, I'm sad to admit. And when the dust settled, I had purchased 69 pairs of roller skates. That doesn't sound like a lot, but that is 138 individual skates, enough to completely fill a Toyota Camry. And of course, they're now marooned in Minnesota, and so I'm trying to figure out how I can get out there cheaply. Long story short, lots of tangential connections. Someone goes and grabs them. Another person's dad grabs them in a U-Haul truck. They make it to a farm in Pittsford, Vermont, and then I take them into my basement for the past 2.5 years. Sorry, Marnie, for these things getting in our way to go to the laundry. Certainly no good community roller disco is going to make it without a marketing arm. I took the Iskra screen printing class last spring, and shout out to Iskra. And I really wanted to make something, and a friend in the class has rejected, oh, why don't you make a poster for your event? And I was surprised by how stern my reaction when I said, it's not a goddamn event, it's a movement. And so was born a Soviet-era propaganda campaign, which you might start seeing around town with the call to action to join the movement and free your hips. And all kidding aside, to be totally transparent, that's why I'm here tonight. I'm calling on all of you to join the movement and free your hips. These skates have yet to be unveiled on the Burlington waterfront, and in a way, you are all now also on the precipice of a very exciting life experience. So, on the solstice, 6 p.m. onwards, come out to the Community Roller Disco. If you don't know where this location is, I highly suggest you hop on a tandem bike and follow the sound of disco music. Thank you.